Good evening, everybody. I'm Jason Meyer, and welcome to Masterworks. Hello, Susan Shakti. More inspiration. Wonderful. Well, tonight we are going to be looking at Clyde Aspevig. In particular, we're going to look at some of his patterns and shapes. We're going to look at two of his paintings, and we're going to slow down because there's a lot to take in. It's so subtle that sometimes it takes a while to actually see it because your mind just wants to read it as real. So, let's not waste much more time on any of that. Actually, before we get started, let me remind you that our schedule this week, 8 a.m. morning jump start. In the morning, we'll work with Susan on some, is it skin? Yeah, it's skin. On some chimp skin color, and just in skin tones and painting skin in general. And then I believe Janny has turned in some horses. So we'll take a look at those two in the morning. We're taking studio time this week off to prepare for next year, which is coming quick. So we may hit it at the end of this week or something, but we'll let you know. But we will do Masterworks every night this week. 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. right here. All right, so let's invite... We're going to do things just slightly different tonight. So you guys will have to let me know if it works out. We're going to bring the iPad into this. Let me just get out of the way here for a second. So as always, let's take just a second to take this in. So to me, Clyde has always got plenty of space in his paintings. Right? But what? What can you say? So let's dig in, and what do you guys see here? What do you see? Have you been able to pick up any patterns that's happening? Have you found the aesthetic foreground and the aesthetic background? What about the picture plane, foreground, middle ground, and background? Well, let me share with you what I see. So I want to propose to you that, whoa, that was completely inappropriate. I apologize for that. I want to propose to you that this relationship is going to be repeated and repeated and repeated. What do you guys think? Can you see that? How that color comes and goes and gets less and more. Right, on a jump start last week, we were talking about shapes. Look, you see how there's not even, like, how do we even put our arm around this shape? And look, it continues. Yeah, cool, warm. He really does play up tempo. He plays up everything because it's so subtle. But almost that orange yellow relationship in color, but definitely cool warm, because you could think about warm cool on the warm side, and you could think about warm cool on the cool side, couldn't you? Right? He's playing the angles every direction. Okay, so let's look at some of these shapes. Okay, first off, do you see we've got a strong division right here? How is he giving us that division? Well, notice that everything, this changes, right? That changes. This changes, right? We go from this to these. Okay, so I'm going to take those marks away and see if you can see that now. It's a relatively hard edge across there. So within this initial shadow, we've got a near, we have a near and a far shadow. But right, all of this is in shadow. You see that? Then we have light, and then that light's got some of these dark shadows catching it. Then we have shadow, light, and even in the clouds you see shadow, light, shadow, light, shadow, light. So there's light shadow sequences, there's color sequences, and there's divisions. So look at what he's got screaming here. Those yellows, right? So the yellows there, and then as we step back to the next plane. What are we going to look at? Well, obviously we're going to be looking here. And then as we go up, where are we going to go? Well, of course, right? And then we're released kind of into this immensity of color here. I want you to notice something. So that road goes pretty straight, doesn't it? No. Do you see that curve? That really matters. That really matters. And so that line comes and goes, right? It's not, right? Do you see the difference? So do you guys have any paintings that have roads in them? Go back and look at the shape of the road. Right? And where does his shape of the road lead to? But does he shoot you straight there? No. He hijacks you by setting this off axis here. And not only that, before you get down there, what does he do? He slows you down with all of this color working across. Then we come here. Right? And then on top of that beautiful movement, look at all these beautiful secondary movements. Okay. All right. So I hope that makes sense. Can you see those movements a little clearer now? All right. So just the orchestration of the whole is just really amazing. Really amazing. What happened? What happened? What happened? Right, this was shadow and this was light. What happened? See, this is the beauty of holding everything so closely together. Right? And this is part of the genius, is it's organized brilliantly, but those values are so close together. And if we want to look at the overall, we've got dark down here and light up here. Right? A little bit of light invading the dark down there, just a little bit. A little bit of the shadow of the dark invading the light. Okay, I almost feel like I'm butchering this thing by even talking about it. It's really such a nonverbal experience. And if you stand in front of one of these things, this grass and stuff in the foreground especially, super thick, chunky paint. I mean, it's like you could walk between all that paint in there. Have a marble race. But just fantastic. Right, do you guys see how subtle that light is right there? Yeah, the strong horizontal line, slow your eye. Exactly. And that's how we slow the pace of the composition, right? By interfering or bringing to a stop or slowing down a movement. And he just does it so beautifully with just these abstract movements. And what's can be easy to overlook too, because you're looking at so much. Look how the shadows on these trees, first they're very subtle, but notice these shapes versus these dark shapes of the hills. Right? You see those shadows are stronger, those shapes. Well, that kind of defies how it's supposed to work near to far, doesn't it? But when you're a master like this guy, you can play some games with that kind of stuff and give a little more clarity in the background. Right? Can you guys see how quietly that moon's sitting there? Oh, come on. Come on. I mean, that's not even fair. And look at the shape of the shadow right? But it's definitely boom, right? You feel, and then you feel us coming back. You feel it turning. You feel it. You feel it. Right? That's part of it, is you feel like you're moving through this landscape three-dimensionally. All right, let's see. Uh-oh. I hope we're still going. It says I'm still live streaming, so we'll see. We'll see. We hope you're still there. So let's look at one more tonight, and this one is even more subtle. Even more subtle. All right. Well, we got one person that can see me. All right. All right, Susan, I hope you're able to jump back on, or maybe catch it later. But like always, take just a minute and look at the painting. Right on. Okay, Susan's back. Susan's back. Excellent. All right, so we're just looking at our second painting with Clyde Aspevig. We haven't really started talking about it. Like always, I'd like you just to take a look at first. See what you see. Can you pick up some patterns that he's working with here? By the way, pattern is like the most difficult composition there is, right? That's a particular style of composition, kind of like the S curve or the C or the triangle. You know, you've heard of all of these. Pattern is another type of composition, and it's extremely difficult to do well. And again, here he is taking almost something that's non-objective and creating these gorgeous patterns out of it. Okay, are you guys ready? So I think before we get into this, yeah, let's jump to the black and white first. And you probably saw the color changes, but do you see the light spots moving through here? Right, we start with one right at the bottom of the canvas, pretty close. It's a big white spot. As we're going down the hill, then we go up the next hill, and then as we get the crest of that next hill, there's another light there, and look at that crazy shape. And then we go over the top of that hill, and we come back up, and then we've got the light shape again. And then there's a very subtle light shape going across the top of those, looks like a little canyon there or something, or rocks. And it continues into the clouds. Can you guys see that? Can you follow that light shape? It's almost like we have 1, 2, 3, and then very subtly through here, very quiet. And there. So look at this painting again with that in mind. Again, how closely he's held those values. Okay, now let's look at something even a little more subtle. The shadows. Okay, so we start with a few up here, but really look at how little there is, and then he climbs us. Oh man. You see, just so very subtle. And then again, we go back here to more clarity that's grabbed a little bit with these shadows. Continued with the dark, right? And released into the sky. Okay, so I want to call your attention to just a couple of abstract things here, because these really are what makes paintings magical like this. There's really not much space here. There's a little bit, right? It doesn't feel like this is crammed right next to the edge. And so you can say we start dark and then go light and then darker, right? And then we come out until we get light again, and then darker, and then light, dark, and then we've got some dark, subtle light patterns there. Right, so you see that pattern, right? The light dark patterns. Now I want you to also notice the space between. Right? That's a note. That's a note. That's a note. Those silent spaces in betweens are notes, those movements. And if those are varied in a wonderful way, well then, you too can have a masterpiece. All right, let's go back to color here. How are we doing? All right, we're doing good on time. All right, and I'm going to give you guys just a second, again, because I don't, let's bring this in a little bit so you can see, make sure you see edge to edge. But again, it all hinges on value, right? And then he can play it up or play it down with color. So we've got a nice yellow note here. How is he approaching that yellow note and coming off of that yellow note? Right? The getting into and the coming out of. If we call this yellow, he's kind of got that blue-green to buffer it. Do you guys see that? And so that the edge and the impact can be varied depending on that. And then, of course, you've got the shadow in here. The red and the green, these were basically the same value. It was that little shadow, you remember? I can't, I mean, to do this and not make it look spotty, well, obviously it's possible because he's done it, but it's quite difficult. How is this shape near? How is it more active? It's bigger. How is that paint different than this? Than this? Right, so let's have a look at that. So there's the foreground, right? Lots of up and down strokes, vertical, very, very busy. And then there's the next one. Right, can you see the difference if we put those? There we go. So the one at the bottom and the at the top. right? How do you show air, very clear air at that, through abstract colors? That's how you do it right there, folks. And then how do we change from that one which was far, now near, to that far one again? All right, little coming and going. Can you see how this near one's still more active? Look at that shape where the back shape is a little more of a passive shape. It's subtle, I know, but that's why we look at these guys. And then again, look at how strong those background light shadows are and how different all those shapes are. Right? It feels very natural. Like no fence builder was allowed in there. It was nothing but pure artist the entire time. Can you feel how he's moved you through the painting now? With just the subtle movements. Right? And that's what makes him a master. Right? No matter how we turn this, it feels balanced and satisfying. Right? Even when it makes no sense. It's still absolutely beautiful and aesthetically balanced. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to leave it there. Again, let me remind everybody that we were looking at Mr. Clyde Aspevig. He's a living American artist, lives and works in Montana, and occasionally you can see his paintings in different shows throughout the United States. And if you ever get a chance to, definitely it's worth driving a few hours or a day or two to see one of his. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, for tonight, that's going to do it. We'll be back in the morning. Susan will be with you. Talk about the chimpanzee. And we'll get with Janny on some horses. All right. And then we're going to get to work on all the exciting things for 2021. So we're going to keep going for a little while, as long as we're home. So you guys can plan on being here and working, and we'll have different programs coming and going. But we're going to see all this out together. And when we get on the other side of it, we're going to be better artists for it. Please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Share us. We'd love to have new friends join us. Till next time, I'll see you guys in the morning. Bye, everybody.